Greetings and salutations, folks. I am knocking out the second cast for today, trying to get a couple out before the weekend. The map is Loki, and the players are Primitive Then and Rasperdan. Um, Loki is a very good one versus one map. It is a true test of skill, incredibly difficult to play because it is rather circuitous. Drops can be effective. Spam is always necessary, and air control is important. Um, we're going to watch this map unfold before us. It is a SpeedRun versus Seraphim matchup. Should be a good one. Let's see where the game takes us. I'm going to go ahead and honor a couple of requests made by people and go over the initial build orders of these guys. We do have an early scout out for Rasperdan. He is going first land. Second air, you will need a minimum of he's going on 6. I've always heard 7 power generators is a good idea before air. We will see how he does concerning his power. Considering the fact that there is not a whole lot of mass extractors near here, and he is also going to have to run quite a ways to get his reclaim. Excellent manual reclaim, by the way. That is the way to do it. He may be able to get by on 6 P-Gens. Primitive Then is also going 6. I may have been mistaken. Perhaps it's 6, not 7. 6 P-Gens, and then on to his second air factory. Both players pushing out some early units. Of course, Seraphim being at a slight disadvantage considering that they only have Selens, they do not have labs, so he is going to try to chase down this hunter with tanks and a scout. At least he is going to be able to push it away from his mass extractors. That is something positive. Over here we do have a Selen. It is going to pick off that engineer, I think. There must be... No, he's aiming. Yes, he is finally picking that off. Scout and Bomber for Rasperdan. He has been slightly faster on his initial build. He's got his second air up a whole lot quicker. And late Bomber coming out for Primitive. That is going to hurt him. This Bomber is going to come over here and snipe off this engineer. That is going to deny this expansion. Taking 2 passes, oddly enough. Cyber Bombers usually do not miss like that. And another miss for the Seraphim Bomber. That covers the initial builds. I'm going to go ahead and bump this back up so we can burn through as much of this replay as we possibly can and try to catch all the action. This Bomber is continuing to hover around over here, finally redirected, coming down south to try and knock out some of this build power. Going to nab another 2 engineers here, and this Mantis is going to be dealt with by the ACU. That is an unsuccessful raid. ACU's pushing left at the top, right at the bottom, just like normal as you would expect. Strong air presence from Rasperdan. That is going to give him a pretty good advantage. Scouting is going to be essential on this map. Most of the time when I've seen this map played, eventually the ACU ends up over in this area. It is able to hide. That is a very deep puddle of water right at the center. I think it's right over there. You have enough room to get your ACU way down deep and away from harm in those little sections of puddle. Otherwise, your head will be sticking out, so artillery is a little bit of a danger. But there is potential to hide your ACU in any of the water puddles. Seraphim may have a slight advantage in this scenario because you can potentially start a good group of build power on one of these sections to be able to push floaty artillery across the water and into the rear of the enemy base. He will have to divert his attention and build Mantis to deny right there. Sadly, these Mantis on the left side are coming in too spread out. He needs to consolidate his units because he's losing his Mantis picked off one by these tanks. But here we do have a little bit of a run by, although normally it's a mistake to leave your units queued in a move order in your own base, but considering this situation, I think it's actually a good thing because he does have the units here to respond to any Mantis run-bys. Mantis, as everyone has heard me say and already knows, such a fast little land unit, and if you play to their strengths with raiding, Mantis raiding is one of the most frustrating things you will ever experience in this game. It will make you want to break your keyboard in half and throw your mouse across the room because you can't get anything done when there's Mantis crawling all over your power. So hard to deal with and puts you so far behind. Mantis coming up here right now. We are going to see a mass. That was bad targeting choices. Swapping up from the mass extractor to the land factory for some reason. I have no idea what that was all about. A successful push by blue up here. He has knocked out 3 mass extractors. Right now the eco is pretty even. We are sitting on 31 to 35, that or 38. That is reclaim numbers. That difference right there is probably these 3 mass extractors. A successful push by the ACU over here on the left side is going to knock out this little foothold. We're now seeing a 50-50 map control split on an odd diagonal line right here. This is usually where the map falls out at. And as I predicted, we are having T1 artillery spam pushed across into the back side of the base. The ACU is on its way over to try and help this expansion, but he will need to be careful not to get caught up in a crowd of Mantis. That is a dangerous spot to be in, although if he does have overcharge, which both players do not have overcharge, and actually Rasperdan is having major power issues at the moment. Strategic overcharge when the units are grouped like this is amazing, but thankfully Rasperdan was not paying attention down there, and he is going to lose all of his units with minimal damage done to Primitive Then. This is exactly what you want to see in this situation. He is moving a group of Mantis down here. Tanks will deny artillery 100% of the time, and there we go, and that artillery is popped off. These 3 mechs going down for Primitive Then as well. Rasperdan returning the favor on his mechs on the other side, and again back down to roughly 50-50 mass split with pushes on the east and west simultaneously. This could potentially have been a good run by, but unfortunately all of the Mantis being pushed around this side from this group of land factories is going to deny that. We are still sitting on 100% T1 at minute 17, which is highly abnormal. Usually you will have seen at least 1 T2 land factory by this point, but it has just been an incredibly hectic push back and forth. And take a peek at the numbers right now. 10,000 mass reclaimed by Primitive Then, doing a very good job of locking down his reclaim. On the other hand, Rasperdan only has 4,600. Both players currently doing a halfway decent job of balancing their eco, although Primitive Dan, I'm sure due to the fact that he's been pulling in reclaim, is quite negative on his mass supply. Just out of curiosity, we see there are a grand total of 14 land factories for Rasperdan and 12 for Primitive Then. It looks like both players have just abandoned the air game. Not something you would normally see in a pro level matchup. This is an average Joe's game. I'm not sure what the global rating is on these players. This does look like a ladder match. But I would have liked to see a little stronger air presence, especially from Rasperdan, considering that he already has the interceptors out. Although I am staring at this and not registering it. We just had a move to T2 air from Primitive then, he is going to push out a gunship, and he does have the interceptors to control air. My bad, peoples, I did not notice this over here. He was stockpiling his interceptors in a nice little group and not advertising them to the other player. Let's take a look at the scouting information. Primitive then not doing a fantastic job, but generally has most of the home base scouted. Nothing scouted up here. He has no idea what's going on. Rasperdan as well does not look like he has very current information. He has most of the buildings scouted, but not much in the way of radar, and definitely not where he needs to be. Overall, I would definitely say that Rasperdan is doing a better job of scouting. We do have T2 land. That was dropped at about 20 minutes, 20 minutes, somewhere in there. Finally seeing T2. That was an incredibly late move to Tier 2. But he is going to have to do something about these gunships. I suspect that he will be pushing mobile flak very soon. Primitive then needs to start paying attention. He lost 2 mechs before he realized what was going on. He is going to come over here and zap those 2 or 3 engineers with those 2 gunships. Not paying attention up here either. He just lost all of his gunships, and he's now losing all of his interceptors to these flak. Just totally negligent, just watching his units disintegrate under flak fire and not bothering to fix the problem. This is actually going to put him in a little bit of a hard spot because he does not have Tier 2 land as of yet, and Rasperdan is sitting on a fairly large pile of rhinos. Those are going to be very efficient at knocking out all of this T1 spam, no problemo. I'm going to flash back to the numbers here. We are sitting on 14,000 reclaim for Rasperdan and 15 for Primitive then. That has evened out. Rasperdan has been able to secure a good little pile of mass apparently, and used it to advance to Tier 2. And also looks like, yes, we are finally starting to see some mass extractors teched up. Got a few Tier 2 for both sides. They've decided that T1 spam is not the answer to all the world's problems, and that Tier 2 is going to need to be brought in to try to solve things. These tanks down here are desperately trying to get back to their buddies in the north, but unfortunately they are getting cut off. I love rhinos. They are such cool looking units. Little low profile tank running away from the oncoming Tham onslaught. Forged Alliance is such a beautiful game. It is hard to imagine that it is almost 8 years old now. I realized that it did get a graphics and shader update courtesy of FAF, but it is surprising how well the engine has held up. I wish this game would get a little more recognition, honestly. There need to be more people playing it, because I'm sure that if a lot of the people playing StarCraft and the MOBAs at the moment were able to experience this game and learn a little bit of it, once you get a taste of this game, it is hard to put it down. There's a lot to learn and incredibly deep gameplay. We're finally seeing Ilshivas from Primitive then. He has taken it upon himself to make the leap into Tier 2, but unfortunately I think he picked a bad time for it. He had a lot of units very close to his base, and whenever you take that jump into Tier 2, it is hard to field enough units to cover all of your bases. There is that brief moment when you have spent your mass on the tier 2 headquarters and not on more tier 1 tanks, and you are vulnerable in that instance. Blue has definitely taken the long way around. Primitive then has gone all the way through the top side and around to finally bring some fire down on Rasperdan's base. And that is going to be the end of his base. Rasperdan was finally able to accumulate enough interceptors that with the help of his flak, he was able to kill off all of Primitive Then's interceptors. And then, like I mentioned, extremely bad timing on that tier 2 upgrade for that factory. That's put an end to his spam. He was not able to field enough units to hold off that wave of tier 2. Rasperdan, having seized back some map control, was able to reclaim, and in the end steamrolled Primitive Then. He pulled in 5,000 more reclaim. Pretty significant number. Well played, both people. Loki is a difficult map. I give props to both of you because I cannot play it. I suck at 1 versus 1. Once again, everybody, if you have any replays that are worth casting, post them in the comments below, message me on YouTube, or look up my Facebook page. The link is on my channel banner. Like and share if you don't mind, and you can leave me replays there. As I've had a couple people have asked, replay IDs. If you are in the FAF client, at the bottom there is a tab labeled replays. Go to it and go to local replays. Those are yours. They're stored on your computer. Click on the one that you want and it will show you the map and all the players in it. Right click, hit view in folder, and it will show you the number of the replay highlighted in the folder location. All I need is that number and I can dig up your replay. Alright guys, that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys again next time.